Okay, so while you're on your tree investigation exploration walk, you might find some things around the tree that help you figure out what kind of tree it is, or it just might be some really cool things to observe. So one of those things is the leaves. So what kind of leaf, what the leaf shape is like will tell you what kind of tree it comes from. And another cool thing, just like we did with the bark rubbing, that you can do is a leaf rubbing, and it lets you see sort of the little veins of the leaf. So what you do is you put your leaf underneath a piece of paper, and you need to have kind of hard surface. And the same way we did with the bark, you're going to take a crayon that doesn't have the paper on it, and you're going to rub like this. And see how you can see all the little veins in the leaf? And also the shape, so that helps you draw. Now I also found something underneath the pine tree that makes me want to research and investigate, sorry, not pine tree, the oak tree, a little bit more, but these are little itty bitty oak leaves, and they're attached to a twig, and I can see that there are little buds here, and that I'm really curious about what these things are. I don't know if you guys have seen these on the sidewalk. So this whole thing came out. So just like the little girls in the story, I could press this by putting it on a piece of paper, folding the piece of paper, and then putting this piece of paper between like two heavy books, and then leaving it for a couple days, and then it would be dry and flat, and it would be cool. I could keep it for a while to investigate. And then the other thing you might want to do is you might want to look up the kind of tree that you saw and try to find it. So for instance, this leaf looks a lot like this leaf, which I found in one of my field guides. But you can also do this on your computer on the internet, and then you can match the bark and make sure it's the same kind of bark. And this will help you see what the shape of the tree is like. Remember we talked about how pine trees are different shapes than something like oak trees or maple trees. So your last step of this investigation is to record one of the trees that you saw. So all you need is a piece of paper and something to draw with. It's better if you have more colors to draw with that actually look like the colors that you saw on the tree. So I was going to try to draw the maple tree that we saw, remember, that had the like moss in it. I thought that was really cool in the bark. So I remember that the trunk of the tree, it's very bright, sorry guys. The trunk of the tree was pretty straight, not quite as straight as the pine, but pretty straight. And kind of like a medium, it wasn't super thick and wide, but it wasn't very thin either. So, and then at the bottom, remember it had those like gnarly roots that kind of went into the ground around it. So draw some of those kind of into the ground. And I'm using a black pencil because I actually don't have a gray pencil. Put the ground down there. And I remember that the bark was like a grayish color. And then remember there were those mushrooms at the bottom, and they were kind of orangish, and they had those little triangle caps on them, a little cluster of mushroom. But then I want to make sure that I get those, the bark, the texture of the bark, it had those sort of like ripples in it. They were kind of uneven. And then in between, it had little like itty bitty tiny plants growing, which I thought were really cool. And they had different colors. Some were sort of yellowish and some were greenish. So I want to add those in between. So some kind of green in there, maybe different color greens. There was, the moss was sort of, some had darker on top of it. And then some of it was just that yellowish color in between. Now this is looking not quite how I wanted it to. So I think I might actually get that all in the cracks. I don't want to keep you guys watching mine, so I'm going to finish up because I want to make the branches. So I'm probably not going to have enough room to make the whole top of the tree, so I might have to just make the bottom few branches. And on that maple tree that we saw, the branches kind of went out. And I remember that the girls in the book talked about how the branches started with big branches closer into the trunk and then got into little branches. So I'm gonna try and do it like that because that's what I observed outside too. Now the best place to do your sketch, your tree observation sketch, is actually outside. So if you have a clipboard like this, that is the perfect place to do it. If you can take your paper outside with you, or you could even just use a book and a piece of paper, just a hard surface. So I'm going to keep going on mine. What I want you to do is I want you to go outside. I want you to do a tree observation and look really closely with your scientist's eye. Notice all the little details of the tree that you observe and try to draw a scientific picture. So it's not going to be probably purple. We don't usually see like purple tree trunks. It might be gray, it might be brown, maybe blackish, or even greenish. Those are all sorts of, and if you feel like it, you could even label the parts of your tree, right? Like this is my trunk. The trunk of my tree is here, so you could label it. That would make it even a tree diagram. All right, so I hope you guys all have fun. Trees are so amazing and so important, and they give us so much wonderful things like wood and paper and oxygen, air to breathe. So enjoy kindergarten.